Welcome to you all. My name is Andrew Chung, Artistic Producer of London Symphonia, and this is the latest edition of Behind the Music. And today I have our principal flute, Laura Chambers. Hello, Laura.
Hello.
And I have our guest soprano, Midori Marsh. Hey, Midori.
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining me so we can find out a little bit more about our program, Under the Moon. So to me, whenever I've spoken with you two, it seems like you get along so well. It seems like you've known each other forever. It's just always a great flow of creativity in the discussions. How did you first meet?
So we met each other. It was 2019, right, Midori? I feel like I
Yeah,
have that date. Yeah.
hasn't been that long. I
Not
guess.
that long. Not that long.
Yeah. So 2019, I got this great email from the Banff Centre for the Arts. For people who are not familiar with that, that's this amazing creative center out in the beautiful mountains of Alberta. And they do all sorts of programs for all sorts of artists. And they were having an opera in the 21st century workshop. And it was in collaboration with an opera company called Against the Grain. And they were looking for musicians. So I thought, I've never really had a chance to do anything like that. I'm going to audition. And I got accepted and went out there, and Midori was one of the wonderful, talented singers that they had in the program as well. And so we were doing this really unique opera by a Canadian composer named Nicole Lizet. It was an interactive piece. So all of the musicians, which was different for me, who's used to sitting in the pit when I do opera work, were actually part of the performance in costume, characters, and the audience members were part of the performance as well. So it was a murder mystery that they walked around and went to different locations and tried to figure out who the killer was. And so it was very unique and a different experience for me. And Midori and I had an amazing scene together, so we spent a lot of time artistically getting to know each other in that space. And then, yeah, we just experienced the amazing nature of Banff and bonded over, I don't know, elk, snow, climbing.
Well, Banff is nice because you spend so much of your time making art, but you also get some time to just like be a person and hang out. And Laura and I got to talking a couple times, and I was like, oh my god, play it cool. Laura's like the coolest person ever. Just say like the most. She's like, well, yeah. And then this one time, like I took this helicopter ride over the Grand Canyon. She's like, well, yeah. And like then one time I was like at Burning Man, and I was like rocking out on the flute at Burning Man. And I'm like, oh my god, like we're so cool. So I don't know. We had really like long, fun conversations, and yeah, I definitely knew. I was like, wow, I really want to stay in touch with this person after this really fulfilling experience, both artistically and personally. I'm like, we met so many amazing people, and like, yeah.
And you both live in the Toronto area, which is convenient for friendship too.
Yeah, we were lucky that way. Yeah.
That's super. Yeah, Banff is it's a bit of a legendary place, really, isn't it? For a great incubator of art and just bringing together of great projects, some of which you're not entirely sure what it is when you embark on. That's great. So Laura, I think you and I had a conversation first for this con. Oh, we got a cattail.
Sorry.
We were warned.
Guest star.
And you and I were having a discussion about putting together a chamber concert idea, and then how did that turn to involving Midori in it?
I mean, I have Midori's, kind of having an amazing meteoric rise through the opera scene, or at least that's how I see it. And I just find her the most engaging performer on stage. She has this magical thing where I think I find that really fascinating, people who can kind of be so approachable and like low key in their normal life, and then they get on stage and it's like this aura surrounds them and you can't look away. And so I just had a secret desire, maybe it wasn't so secret, for us to collaborate. And so, yeah, I was trying to think about like if I could have my dream guest artist, who's a friend and someone I admire, on stage with me, who would that be? And Midori was the first name that came to my head. So yeah,
Very
that's
cool.
how
So just so that our audience can get to know you a bit, Midori, other than being surrounded by amazing pieces of art at all times, Um, I love your morning backdrop. It's great. So tell us, so you are currently in the Canadian Opera Company Ensemble Studio, which is their flagship development program. This is year 3, is it?
This is my 3rd year. I joined out of my master's degree that I did at U of T. You know, a little bit rough at the start, COVID-wise, not a ton to do in terms of performing. That's really the thing that they give their young artists, is like so much experience on stage. But yes, this is my 3rd and final year with the Canadian Opera Company's Young Artists Ensemble.
Now, oftentimes there's you get 1 or 2 years, is that right? Two maximum, and
2 is pretty standard,
okay.
but we got 1 delicious pity year because of COVID. So
and so they give you performing opportunities and roles on stage in the main season, or is it on, a separate set of performances? How does it all go?
I mean, that's definitely like all of the above. All of the above. You can do smaller parts in the main stage shows, or even larger parts in the main stage shows. My good friend Charlotte Siegel, plug, is singing Musette next year in Bohème as an ensemble member, which is so exciting. I sang roles like Papagena in Magic Flute, and Anina, the extremely hardworking maid, in La Traviata. And you can also put on like an ensemble version of a show on the main stage. Sometimes it's for younger audiences, but in those kinds of shows, like, the ensemble will make up the bulk of the main cast. Yeah, and you do community things and smaller concerts, noon hour recitals, and then just tons of coaching and learning and growing.
Just amazing. It's a totally amazing program. Tell me what it's like to sing from that stage. This is, for those who don't know, this is at the Four Seasons Centre, right at smack in the middle of downtown Toronto. Maybe it's a 15-year-old building, purpose-built for opera. What's it like on that stage?
Oh my God, I just sang there last night to make a recording. It's the best. It's the best. It's such a great hall. It's such a great orchestra. It's such a friendly place to sing. Like, it's so like it can be so forgiving, and just like, singing into a space is like, it's like you're having a conversation with the room, and some of those conversations go so terribly. Like, you can feel like singing into a pillow, or like screaming into the void. But the Four Seasons Center is such a friendly, open, space to talk to. I'm so happy to have gotten to sing there, especially, and to sing with the orchestra, which is like such a treat and a pleasure. And I mean, it's really a magnificent experience. I wish everyone could do it, even people who would never consider themselves like professional singers. Like, I wish everybody got the chance to sing like their favorite song with a full orchestra. It's the best feeling ever.
I love it. I love it. So Midori, tell me, this theme of this concert, we titled it Under the Moon. How did that come about? Was it something that you had been thinking about more, or that Laura and you came up with?
I could not even begin to describe like the true origins of Under the Moon, because Laura and I were just like these long conversations, which would start for the first like 5 or 10 minutes as real kind of work oriented, repertoire oriented conversations, and then would just migrate immediately away into like all of these nebulous areas of our lives, the lives of the people around us, the the future of the globe in general. And like it sort of emerged from these really long organic conversations that we had. Laura, I don't know if like that's how you feel, or if you could like pinpoint a more exact like origin.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it just kind of organically came out of that, like, exactly that flow that we have that kind of goes everywhere, and we interrupt ourselves and interrupt each other, and then have, yeah, just a lot of amazing, it's like a jungle gym of ideas where everything's just bouncing around.
So we have the entire universe distilled into a 1 hour concert. That's like remarkable. That's amazing.
Yeah,
So,
listen, I don't want to oversell it, but
so each of the pieces has a connection to the moon as such. The moon kind of, the idea of the moon ties together the concert. And then there's also, I think the roles that you inhabit as a singer, Midori, sort of underpinned the notion of where this concert could go. Can you explain that a little bit more about how women are represented in art, in myth, and what you were thinking in terms of that the transition through life and how that could form an arc with this concert?
yeah, this is one of those things that sort of came out really organically from these long, long conversations that Laura and I were having. Um, the phases of the moon, which was something we sort of landed on as a theme for this concert. Um, those are sort of factual, observable phases, but the more Laura and I were talking and the more we just couldn't help but kind of involve our personal lives and our ideas, it sort of occurred to us that when we are planning out these phases, the waxing and the waning phases, as they um, pertain to the performer or the singer, especially when the character is a woman, it is so easy to wax and wane. There are like no shortages of moments of waxing and waning, of yearning or of madness or of waiting or of um like kind of dissolving emotionally. And there are very few kind of declamatory or full scope pieces for a lot of these characters, and that's something we sort of discovered upon planning. And yeah, I think it can be really easy to feel that way for a lot of people, that you're always in some sort of waxing phase, like you haven't reached your true potential, or you're waning, you've sort of lost a power that you were never even really aware of how to wield. So yeah, this is sort of an exploration of those feelings, whether or not they're kind of true. Yeah, I hope that made sense.
It does, but it's particularly curious that when you're thinking about, okay, at the full moon moment, which represents, a woman in her full power, there aren't that many examples that you
Yeah,
could find and to
and
program in this concert.
yeah, and even I love opera, but it can be those examples in opera, those kind of full moon examples, can be a little fewer and farther between. Not to say they don't exist, they do. And there are many characters in opera, um, who I resonate with and who I think are really sort of full and interesting people. But it's just interesting to note, especially now that opera is sort of going through these big shifts. Um, where we're sort of looking at how we can change what needs to be changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about these sort of things.
So we landed on a small ensemble of a string quartet, you on flute, Laura, Dan on percussion, your partner Dan, and we have Angela on harp. Now, was this the kind of music that you could pluck off the shelf and there was a lot for this ensemble, or did we need a little bit of help in that department?
Yeah, no, it definitely was not. I mean, as Midori just previously referenced, typically opera happens in a large hall with a really large, beautiful opera orchestra. And so we knew this was going to be a chamber concert when we started talking about it. And so that was part of the sort of exciting adventure we went on, trying to figure out how can we take some of these amazing works that originally exist in that space and then make them into something new and beautiful for the space Aeolian Hall in London that we're going to be performing in, which has its own sort of special, unique character. And so we're really lucky. We have a lot of talented musicians who are in, of course, London Symphonia and also associated with London Symphonia. And so both Dan Morphy, who's my partner and also a beautiful percussionist, and Ben Bolt Martin, who's the cellist on the show, and also an amazing arranger, both of them. Really excitedly were like, yes, we would love to do this. We'd love to explore this very eclectic mix of music that you guys have chosen. And we kind of sat down with them and talked about which pieces they resonated with and were excited to create these new arrangements of. And so, with the exception, I think, of two pieces on the program, which are the strictly instrumental ones. Oh no, actually, one of them is the Gobert, which is for flute and harp and Midori, and then one is the Roussel, which is for string trio, flute, and harp. Those ones are pretty much in their original form, but everything else is a new arrangement created by either Ben or Dan.
That's pretty exciting. I love that. And so when you decided on the music, were you looking for thematic links, or some well-known pieces kind of peppered in there with some new and surprising works?
I think it was kind of a mix of both. We had this idea of, and it felt very nebulous for a long time. I think we latched really early onto that idea of, we want this concert to have this beautiful arc, for it to be like a one-time experience, no intermission, start to finish. And what will be happening is kind of actually both in this space. The space will transform through that phase of the moon, going through the new moon, waxing, full moon, waning, and then back to the new moon. And then also the music to sort of follow that arc, although it's not completely literal. So there's a bit of it that is definitely growing in intensity. The two pieces that are in the middle are sort of purposely sort of outside. They're from very different genres. They may not feel particularly congruent. They have a bit of a definitely that intense kind of active energy within them, but in a very different way, and that was very purposeful.
And these are the two pieces representing the full moon, kind of in the middle of the program. And so you've got two works there. There's This Is My Hand by My Brightest Diamond, for those who don't know. How would you describe My Brightest Diamond in a sentence?
Well, she is a pop artist coming from the States, singer-songwriter, does a lot of electronic rock pop kind of songs, and has sort of a feminist theme to a lot of her music.
And then you've got the Albert Roussel, the Presto, also representing the full moon. Now, on the waning side of things, just a couple of examples. Midori, there's this scene being extracted from Lucia by Donizetti, known as the Mad Scene. What's up with that?
Well, I love Lucia as a character for this concert because she is connected to the moon. One of her very famous arias references this experience, this ghostly experience she had under the moon's light. But to me, this is sort of, operatically speaking, like the ultimate wane. Like she has been put through it, really. She's so not in control of her own life, not in control of her own destiny. Even though she knows what she wants and has so much to say, there's just nothing she can do in the end except for go mad and kill her fiance and cover herself in his blood, and then go down and make everyone feel bad for her, because she's really just sort of beyond it. Like nothing can touch her at this point, but this is for her like a last burst of energy. It's like one last desperate attempt to claim some sort of happiness, which she's not able to do. But yes, it's like, yes, waning to the extreme, soprano style.
And there's nothing that says going mad than having a flute and a soprano just kind of tee off. It's a scene that's where this is written in the original opera, right? Like the flute and the soprano. So I'm sure that was a reason why it was chosen as well.
Yeah, this is super exciting for me. I've always wanted to play. It's an excerpt for flute players that we get really excited, and sometimes the flute players on stage, sometimes they're in the pit in the performance. But it's definitely, yeah, we I don't know if we're really battling. It's more like we're just kind of going insane together.
It's the best way. Go insane with friends. Uh, that's terrific. And you did allude to the fact that we're going to have some lighting. We actually don't know what we're doing yet. It's going to be a surprise. But we do have Stephen Degenstein doing some lighting design on this, and there'll be some moon projections so people won't get lost. People won't get lost. They'll know when it's going to be the full moon.
Yeah, we're gonna be obvious about it. Why not?
So let's have a little non sequitur. Midori, I'm just curious. Like, I feel like you, maybe more than anyone in the country right now, knows where the new generation of opera, what that looks like, what that feels like. Can you share with us, what do you see? Where do you see this vital art moving in the future?
For me, it always has to be a blend of new and old. I think part of opera's charm, I guess, for lack of a kind of more intense term, is that it's old, it's lasted, it's stood the test of time in so many ways. You know, it connects us to a past that many people find very interesting. um, and it's music that has clearly had the ability to, you know, excite people or connect with them for many hundreds of years. So I think that blend is always going to be there. um, but I think it's sort of about the ratio of new to old, or the way that we become comfortable combining new and old, new voices and old voices, new works and old works. The Met's new season has a huge portion of new productions and um, operas written by living composers. You know, that's like, they're kind of the flagship company in North America, and that's what they're doing. You know, they're putting money into new works and um, new stories. Yeah, I think also smaller companies and indie companies are really, you know, whether they get the clout they deserve or not, are kind of like turning the tide um, and setting the pace. Like, they're showing what you can do when you can really have a small group of people that is able to communicate with each other um, and make decisions. And I kind of feel like, you know, bigger companies are taking notes from that, because indie companies have been putting money into new work and supporting new artists and doing really, really interesting projects for many years now. And like, you know, big companies are kind of just like, well, okay, like, you know,
Yeah,
I guess.
it's edgier. It's edgier. It's more agile, and it's can be equally as impactful, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm. That's great. Thank you.
It's exciting.
Oh yeah, it's totally exciting. It's not a dead art form by any stretch of the imagination. I think there's great creators looking to use that, the vehicles of voice and musicians and stage, and just digging deep into emotions and to create still beautiful, beautiful art. So, Laura, I mean, I don't know about you, but I kind of swoon over how an opera singer can phrase and shape and for vibrato, and just the depth of uh of thought within a single line. What do you get out of what do you learn from how opera singers do what they do, and sing the way that they do, breathe the way they do? What do you get out of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting thing because flute is technically part of the woodwind family, but we're really different than pretty much every other wind and brass instrument, because we, you'll notice, don't blow into something, we blow across something. So we have absolutely nothing that we're what wind players refer to as resistance. There's nothing pushing back against our air. And so what I've been really fascinated with, I guess throughout my career, is that our actually closest relative in terms of musicianship and sort of physicality are singers. So they breathe very similarly to us, and support their air really similarly. They produce vibrato. That's always kind of a complex conversation, whoever you're talking to, but some people believe in the same way. Yeah, so that was one of the things when I went to Banff that it was so interesting. It's funny when you go to school for music, and I don't know if Midori felt this from the other end. It's like singers and instrumentalists do inhabit the same place, and we do take the same courses together. But in a lot of places, especially as young artists, we're kind of siphoned off into these two spaces, and so we're sort of the same but different, and we're doing the same thing. I remember when I went in to do my audition for this program, there was no screen. You just go in. They actually talked to me, and I was like, oh, okay, you want to like have a conversation? That's not something I normally do as a flute player. When I go in to play for an orchestra, you just play your flute and you walk out, and it's a whole different thing. And so when I went to Banff, I was like, wow, they have all these amazing coaches, and I want to talk to them about how they produce sound, because I saw so much similarity in the way that these amazing artists are able to sort of project sound, first of all, like create that massive resonance out of their own bodies, and then also, of course, support their phrases. And the flute kind of has that vocal quality. You'll hear it. We try our best to sing. I think we do a pretty good job. Yeah, so I've taken a lot of inspiration. Actually, Midori and I have been lucky enough, I think Midori's working with her right now, to work with a London coach. Her name is Jennifer Swan, and she talks a lot about like helps artists learn how to use their bodies, singers. And I was so excited about that I was like, I'm going to learn from her too. And so, yeah, there's so many intersections, and I don't know if Midori and I talk about that too. I've asked her lots of questions about vibrato and how she produces resonance, those vowel shapes. And yeah.
Laura and I are professional breathers. Like,
yeah.
Breathers.
Professional exhalers.
That's great. The breath is so important. We love singers. We love you. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this chat. Laura, thank you for taking on this curatorial role in a co-curatorial role with Midori, designing a beautiful program that I'm sure everyone's going to enjoy, and we can't wait to hear this concert Under the Moon. Thanks again.